1828 dictionary. There it came.
Google.
Yeah, yeah. And I just am doing everything Audrey's way because she's the one that converted me. The thing she recommends with looking, oh, that's blood on my finger. With looking up words is that right in the book you circle the unfamiliar word and write the definition right there. So next time you read it, if that word didn't sink in, you have the definition right there. Or you can study it again, you know, whatever. And she does circle the word. She does different things for different kinds of things that you want to mark. So with unfamiliar words, we circle them. Then the other is to do chapter summaries. And these can be, she recommends you write them either at the beginning of the chapter, right at the, you know, before it says chapter 1, you write chapter 1 summary above, or at the very end of that chapter. And it can be bullet points, it can be a list of main ideas, it can be a paragraph, whatever you want to do, but to write a chapter summary, to do it as soon as you can after you read the book, or after you read the chapter, so that you have the details right. And I did this a lot in lifelong learning, and it helps keep things clear. When I wanted to look back for things, you know, when we would discuss in class, and I wanted to say, oh, where's that part? I looked through chapter summaries and through other markings, helped me find a lot faster. Plus, if you want to return to the classic works, which is ideal that you can be able to return to them, your book will just be all ready for you to get right back into it. You can read chapter summaries and you'll just know right where you are. So those are going to be the assignments. I probably didn't have to go into that much depth because it's in the article, but those are the ones we're focusing on for this next time. So now is the big meaty part of the discussion where I want to talk about the lecture and the principles in that. So we have about an hour that we'll discuss this and then move on to the closing last portion of the meeting. And to introduce, I promise I'm not going to talk all this much the whole time, but I do want to get us started with a topic and then we'll turn it over to questions that you have. If there's a lull in that, I have some questions, some of Audrey's questions we can go over. So, my question is, if this Tytler cycle that she talks about is truly happening over and over, if it's really there, which we're going on the assumption that it is, and I think it probably is, if that really is happening over and over in society, and it always goes in that same order, that society goes through those steps in the same order, then I think it would be safe to say that each step in the cycle is a principle. So it started with, what did it start with? I don't have my notes right here. Bondage to spiritual faith. So that would mean a principle is that bondage leads people to spiritual faith. And another principle is that spiritual faith leads people to courage. If that cycle is really true and really happens just that way, then each one of those, I would say, is a principle. It's something that's just true that happens with society. And so I picked out one of those that I really didn't think it was true, but just pondered about, that I wanted to discuss a little. So I was thinking about the principle that liberty leads to abundance. And that is something I want to think. It might be because I'm taking Deanna's class right now. And we're thinking about giving of our substance and thinking about abundance. And I have been thinking about it for a few months, just trying to figure out about abundance and how to switch my brain. And right now I'm working on a switch from thinking that my time is scarce to thinking that it is abundant. And that's going really awesome, actually, to think of my time as abundant. I love it. Anyway, so I know that this principle of liberty leading to abundance, I know it ties into responsibility. I know it ties into virtue. If people are not virtuous, then they're not going to be able to maintain liberty and abundance. And so I thought about those different things. We can go into those. But my main question is, why is that true? Why does liberty lead to abundance?
A true feeling of liberty makes us feel that we can do anything. And so I think it opens up our minds to things that we thought were impossible when we were in bondage. When we come to understand who we really are and what our potential is, and we have an ability to act on that because we're not in financial bondage or spiritual bondage or physical bondage, then we have an ability to create that abundance. And of course, I think a lot of that, like she said, it starts with faith and courage. And so if we've gone through that spiritual faith and we are aware of a creator that is there to help us, I mean, I think that whole liberty to abundance is so huge because it shows how much government really makes a difference in our lives. The inclusion or the lack of government, leadership, and the true principles that go with that.
I hear part of what you're saying, that liberty and abundance is partly about how we see things and how we think about things. That we can think and feel free, and we can think and feel abundantly. Maybe even people in the same situations could see it differently.
Oh, absolutely.
And one could be more free than the other, even, financially, even if they have the same amount of money, or, or whatever it is.
Which is why Deanna's class is so fabulous.
Yeah.
Because it does matter what we think.
Yeah.
And that's why faith and courage. Oh, bummer, did we lose her?
Yes, I would like to sign in again, please. That voice is so crazy. Yeah, thanks, hon.
Anyway, that's because it is a paradigm. And so that's why liberty and abundance are way down the cycle, because we have to have the faith. And she mentioned also hope in her lecture when she said, okay, now that we're all in despair, there is hope.
Yeah.
You have to have the faith and the hope to have the courage and then the liberty and the abundance, because it is here.
Yeah.
And faith affects our whole being, not just,
Yeah. As I realize, as I apply certain principles and learn them and change the way I think and the way I see things, I feel more free. When I improve something about myself, I feel more free. When I have enough self-control to not yell at a child, when I feel like yelling at a child, I feel more free.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
We feel more empowered.
Yeah.
And that liberates us.
Yeah.
You there, favorite?
You know what that made me think too? If I have enough, if I have the freedom and the control to not yell at my kid, that liberty that I have because I'm developing my self-control leads to an abundance in a way, because it leads to an abundance of love if I'm creating that. And so I think I'm just realizing as I'm talking, which is a good sign, that liberty in all sorts of areas can lead to abundance in all sorts of areas. That if we're thinking about how liberty leads to abundance, I bet we're going to find it all over the place. As we set ourselves free, we'll have an opportunity to have things like love, to have things like money, to have things like happiness growing and flowing with us more as we become more free.
I realize that it's individually we can be at different levels of bondage, freedom, and so forth. But as a whole, as a United States, I think that we are seeing a decline in complacency. I think is already come and gone. I think now it's an apathy as well. I think it's now becoming dependent on the government dependent on what other people are doing for us rather than